Welcome to the Grow Your Practice podcast. Hi, I'm your host, Chad Madden, owner of Madden Physical Therapy and Breakthrough. Join me each week as we dive into the best practices, systems, principles, tips, and tricks to help you grow your private practice.
Hey, quick break here. I want to talk to you about the Titans live event that we're hosting in Nashville, Tennessee. That's going to be September 24th through 26th. There is one key thing that I need to tell you about. So earliest pricing is right now. Early bird pricing is on today. In the show notes, I'll leave a code for the current discount for early bird pricing. The other thing that I want to tell you about is this. We know that many private practice owners are also clinicians. So on Sunday, the 27th, after the event, for everybody who registers, the first 100 who register for the event, you're going to get a day of continuing education absolutely included in your ticket price. So, if you want to hear Larry Benz, Drew Contreras, Lance Gross, Jerry Durham, Aaron LeBauer, Jamie Schreier, Mary DeLong, and more, make sure you register. On Sunday, we'll be hosting 2 continuing education. You get your pick. You can do primary care and differential diagnosis with Dan Neff and breakthrough manual therapy, or you can choose to do the Ben England orthobiological hacker course day 1, also on Sunday. So Dan and Ben and both of their groups, absolutely amazing that they're offering to this to you as well. But this is only for the first 100 registrants. We have a few spots left. If my math is right, I believe we have 29 spots left. So if you haven't done so already, as of this recording, make sure you go to titansofprivatepractice.com, register for the event, get your ticket, claim your seats now. And one of the most common questions is, should I be bringing my staff? Yes, you can bring your team. I know one practice just registered and is bringing eight of their team members. So yes, you can do that. Key team members, clinical directors, partners, other decision makers within your practice, absolutely. We're going to be talking about everything from, what's going on in finances and reimbursement and cash pay and revenue cycle management. We're going to be talking about personnel and hiring, having sessions and breakout sessions for that. We're going to be talking about marketing and how to use AI in the practice, and how we should be converting and how our marketing should be integrating with our EMR and all of those goodies as well. We're going to be covering systems. Lots in it for you, a little something for everybody. This is what is working right now in private practice PT that is leading to success quickly. Make sure you register, and also you can claim your free education day on Sunday, September 27th in Nashville, Tennessee, at the event at the same exact venue. Go to titansofprivatepractice.com right now, and I'll see you there. Hey everybody, Chad Madden here with the Grow Your Practice podcast, and I am super pumped for this one. I know I usually say we have a very special guest. This time around, Josh Funk, the founder of Rehab to Perform. I've been following you, Josh, forever on LinkedIn, Facebook. I know you have a huge social media presence as well. Welcome to the Grow Your Practice podcast here, man.
Chad, appreciate it, man. This is really full circle. I don't know how many times I've signed up for all of the little snippets that you kind of microdose out there to people. So not just a fan of your business from a private practice standpoint, but also a fan of everything you're doing with Breakthrough.
Awesome. Thanks, man. That means a lot. So we'll get into it here. Rehab to Perform, you have an amazing story. Can you tell us a little bit take us from, I think you played lacrosse at Maryland, right?
Ohio State. I'm from Maryland. Yeah, that's all good. It's all good.
Ohio State. And then, boy, that's such a slight coming from a Penn State guy. Hold on. Just being in Pennsylvania. But yeah, take us from Ohio State to Rehab to Perform. Why'd you become a physical therapist? What were you looking to do with your private practice as well? What did that look like?
Chad, first of all, we won't dive deep into, but both of my parents were Penn Staters. So,
that's great.
And there's 5 of us and not a single one went to Penn State. So,
nice.
Yeah. Anyways, I'm still a Nittany Lions fan, except for when they play my Scarlet and Gray. I was a college athlete. My whole identity growing up was rooted in athletics. I was fortunate to be very, very healthy And when I got injured, I happened to be in the mecca of sports medicine. Had access to everything. I had tremendous professionals around me. I had a very progressive model. I was able to avoid surgery for something I think a lot of people would equate, having a torn labrum as having to get surgery. And then when my sophomore season wrapped up, I probably was 90% of the way. Some of your higher level activities were still painful. And the staff there was like, hey, go home, finish up your rehab. We can touch base with you from afar, and you should be good to go for your junior year. I was so shocked at the contrast between what was really available in the community versus what was available at school. And I think that's where I fell in love with the fact that, hey, how do I create this like micro, elite sports medicine environment that really is for anyone? Everybody has a season, regardless of whether or not it's sport, activity, work, social. And it's up to us to kind of come up with a model that is consumer facing, that fits a bell curve of the population, or at least like our target demographic with competitive athletes, active adult, those looking to be more active, that looks, feels, and delivers similar outcomes to Ohio State or another place that I'd gotten a lot of influence during my college years, which was Athletes Performance, which is actually now Exos nowadays. So, that experience myself forced me to really look at the potential of potentially kind of creating, again, kind of like that micro Ohio State for the place that I grew up in, which is really, where the first two locations were, which are probably no more than 15 miles from where I grew up.
That's great. So and what year did you open your first Rehab to Perform clinic?
Let's see, I was 28. So that was December 2014.
Nice.
Yep.
So the one thing I know you talk about and write about a lot is scaling. And so first, would love to get your definition of how you think. I think going from 0 to 15, soon to be 19 clinics definitely falls in the definition of scaling. But how do you think about that? And how do you talk with the clinician? Most of us were trained as clinicians, and it's very difficult for us just to see outside of ourselves. And attract the right team members and do all these other things that most of us don't learn in PT school. How did you work your way through that? Let's start with how do you define scaling first?
I think two words come to mind when I would define scaling, and one would be sustainable, and then another one would be repeatable. And I think they just go hand in hand. So a lot of that would center then around the word process. Big believer that people compete on process and companies compete on process. And if we can put repeatable process in place, we'll have something sustainable that not just is potentially a replica of what used to be at another office, but ideally as you go, that first office is the worst product that you ever rolled out. I think true scaling allows you an opportunity to move forward, to utilize a new playbook as you add each individual location, and should give you the potential to improve upon whatever you'd put in place previously. When I think of this, sometimes I think of sports, I think about install, right? If I'm installing a playbook, I have the ability to pull upon previous experiences, and I'm installing it with a new season, new team, new group of people, knowing that the 2025 season got me so far, but I learned X, Y, and Z. I improved the playbook, and now I'm installing it in the 2026 year. I like to think of things similar with regards to how we roll out new offices, putting ourselves in a situation where, we can kind of embody our company phrase, be greater than yesterday. It is a true, embodiment of the fact that we want to continue to just find all of these opportunities to be better, to elevate the standard, as opposed to, maybe the opposite there, where we're growing at all costs, we're accepting things. One of my favorite phrases is, we're providing permission slips. We don't want to be providing permission slips. I would say that that's probably the antithesis of scaling.
Yeah, great. You have a lot in there. One of the key things that you said early was around the first is the worst.
Yes.
And that's the way that it should be. I actually can't believe you said that because I think it's so counterintuitive for most of us, where we think like the first time that I do something, that should be perfect. And then it basically with entropy gets worse as we go along.
Yep.
Right. So how did you learn that? How do you think about that? And then when you're having a conversation with somebody who thinks about it the other way, where most clinicians think that first practice is my bedrock, this has to be the perfect one, and then I'll have like a satellite clinic, which is a little bit of an afterthought. How did you unlearn the latter?
I would say that I always thought that first one was kind of like, I think a lot of people hear the phrase MVP and they first think of most valuable player, but for me, it's, minimum viable product. Yeah. That office was the minimum viable product for me to put out to the population, for me to kind of solidify the thought that I think that there was an opportunity here. So you put something together, it's imperfect, it has a lot of holes, you're trying to resource problems as quickly as you can, you're improving the layout, you're improving aesthetics, you're improving front desk, back office, you're improving equipment selection, you're improving flow, you're improving all of these little items associated with the waiting room, the treatment room area, the turf, the training area. And although I still call our first office our flagship because it has continued to grow and it is definitely our biggest office, it still has elements where some of the newer offices have far eclipsed it with regards to some of the things like that I mentioned previously. So it is, again, that minimum viable product. It was the incubator, right? That you're incubating your idea and you're trying to put something together that you feel like has enough stickiness or traction in the market so that then you can go do it a second time and say, start at a more refined version of what maybe you even have currently in place at that first one.
Yeah. MVP, super intelligent. I don't hear too many practice owners talking about that. I get to hear it all the time from the software people in my life, but that's great. The other thing that you mentioned early was processes and playbooks. And it seems to me that within private practice, there's a lot of confusion around what's a system, right? And you talked about that briefly. What's a process? And then what is a playbook? How are they the same? How are they different? Can you talk through how you think about that and you apply it to Rehab to Perform?
Oh, this is so good. Let me do my best to one-shot this. I'm going to start at the process level. I would say processes have much less wiggle room. If I'm thinking about a process, thinking about something that is a little bit more algorithmic in nature, you maybe have a couple different decision-making criteria, but you're largely saying if A, then I need to almost always end up towards Z. I would say on the systems level that I'm probably going to be more thinking about elevating the floor and or narrowing guardrails around people. So there are certain things in place that potentially aggregate process, or they aggregate cheat sheets, or they take in information. And I have room to kind of wiggle around a little bit. And it's up to me to blend what to think with how to think. I would say that could be done in all of your different departments. And I think of playbooks, I think of a playbook that would be for an entire department. So it might be a collection of systems with processes. Those systems and processes would be in a playbook for a particular profession within your company and or department. And ideally, you're in a situation where, like, if we're speaking to the new business owner, you probably have very little of that. I think process is probably the key place where I would start, where you're trying to say, hey, I've been able to get to a repeatable result. I'm going to operationalize it by writing it down, providing screenshots, providing a Loom video recording or something. Somebody else is going to go through it. And we're going to make sure that everybody can get from A to Z. Then I think when you add more people, you can start to kind of put together the way that people do stuff a little bit differently. And you're able to kind of communicate accepted variance, right? You're able to say, okay, person 1 through 10 can all get to this area by bouncing between these guardrails. This is the minimum level that we have to do things at, but we are allowing people to bring their own creative genius, their own intellectual property, their own soft skills with this what to think. Let's think about research articles, journal articles, or whatever. And the collection between the two are allowing me to have some kind of repeatable result that says, okay, this is the test. All of these people are able to beat the test. And what do we typically know that as? We know that as key performance indicators. So, there's a lot of different roads to Rome. And that's where those systems come to place. And then I would say that over time, you start to have a little bit more of a playbook where, person number 31 comes in, they have a playbook in place. We've been doing this for a long period of time. You're probably less likely to point at the things provided to the individual and more likely to be able to point things out that the individual needs to work on based on how they're able to perform early on, whether or not it's onboarding, mentorship, or whatever KPIs you might be looking at.
Nice. Employer and consumer brand. I will just say every time I'm on LinkedIn, it's either Jimmy McKay at the top of my feed or you. And
guy.
You're on there a lot. So
what about Jerry? Jerry's on there too. But
Jerry, very hot. Yep, frequently. Jerry's more of a comment on somebody else's post.
Fair.
With a repost. But I know you seem to do a lot of long form copy. Very much admire that, and I think you're doing a great job with branding your company and sharing the scaling story. Can you talk through how you think about that, and especially with your pretty large and growing social media presence, how you're doing that, and ultimately how that helps you attract the right team members and everything else, all of the above?
This could go in a lot of different directions. And I'm going to first say that you should strive to be aspirational with regards to the brand that you want to have, while also recognizing the brand that you do have. And I would say that brand, when you get to the root of it, is a grouping of associations, a grouping of things. And can you have that pairing or that grouping of associations be very, very consistent over time? So I do think that a lot of people aren't as intentional about that, where even again this year, we went through our entire company brand kit, which is not like 1 page or 2 pages. It is many pages, 20 some, I don't remember the exact number, but again, your level of intent with it is extremely important for you even having one. I'm not going to say that we're perfect, but we get better every single year. When you're talking about things in social space, we have a collection of items that we feel like we have proof on. We have proof who we are. We have proof who we've worked with. We have proof what we've done. We have proof that members of our team have seen. We have proof that the consumer has seen. It's up to us to kind of uncover ways to be transparent about those things. Fortunately, you're using a little bit of your own intellectual property to share some of those gems on social media. I love to use whisper flow. So a lot of the times when I'm putting content out, I'm literally just taking stuff that I'm communicating. One of my favorite things too is if I had a one-to-one meeting or a group meeting or something where I'm talking almost the entire time, I can pull the transcript out and just scrape my entire conversation with somebody, then throw it into AI, but at least it sounds like me. Yes, I have AI helping me with a lot of things, but the authenticity surrounding a conversation that I actually had, words that I used, the way that I spoke things, I think that helps me put that out there. But then getting to, employer and consumer brand, I think, they are equally important. I think at the end of the day, we set out to do things originally because there was a contrast in what was being provided to the consumer. But I've realized how important over time that the employer brand probably is the thing that is even more important than the consumer brand. If you take care of your staff, if you have something that's very, very appealing for people to walk into your ecosystem, you're not running into many of the staffing problems, and then you can focus on the other things. If you don't have staff and you're so worried about filling the next seat at your company, I would argue that you can't even think forward enough to really get into the nitty gritty about increasing your payer mix, or changing compensation with one of your insurance payers, or adding more cash pay services because you're so focused on the most critical person in your business ecosystem. So, that employer brand should kind of be, the first thing that at least I think that you should be focusing on, but also understanding how they do feed one another. How you're going to have a certain clinician that is best suited to serve that consumer that you're looking to serve. And then that certain consumer is also looking for that certain clinician. So you've kind of got this symbiotic relationship that I think, again, if you're intentional about both, it's really going to future-proof your business.
That's great. I want to talk about, as an offshoot of that, ask you questions about culture, because I think that's fairly closely intertwined with what you're talking about with the employer brand, and that being the highest priority, even over potentially the consumer brand. I think this is, right now we have this huge retention problem in private practice. We have clinicians that are not only churning from their current position, but they're churning out of the industry altogether because of the cap that they have. How do you think about that when you're thinking about building a culture? Are you focused on, like, I know I went through the exercises, like 3 to 5 core values, and we go through people analyzers and all these different tools. How do you think about it at Rehab to perform, and how did you build such a strong culture that's retaining and giving people opportunities to grow?
Yeah, I mean, it's almost sounds a little bit cliche at this point in time, but mission, vision, and values are definitely things that you need to regularly, allocate time to. I do think that you need to find ways to operationalize them. I think you need to find ways to make sure that you're actually leading with them. Are you leading with them in their hiring process? Are you leading with them in the onboarding and the mentorship process? Are you leading with them in how you praise people? Are you leading with how you potentially have hard conversations with people? So I do think not only do they need to be on the wall, but they also need to be things that you're putting in place. Do you put ways for you to have micro recognition of the values being followed? For us, that's High Five Fridays. We also have a Best Teammate award that is tied with a bucket list award that they get. So you're having people choose things that, there are situations where people are embodying the very, very thing that you say is important. I think cultural goes into other items with regards to being culturally resonant. How culturally resonant is your company with what's going on in the world around you? Are you matching the type of environment? For us, we are more of an athletic brand. Are we allowing clinicians to wear athleisure? Are we allowing them to look like certain spaces that we are getting influence from? Do we have certain things on the wall? Do we have certain phrases? Is there a certain common language that allows us to speak in a way that not just resonates amongst the professional side of things, at least for our R2P staff, but also the consumer? So I think there's like a lot of things in business, kind of an ecosystem-based approach to it. It is multifaceted, but you're going to really have to sit down. And again, it's another one of those things that you can recognize what you have right now, much like core values, but you also should have things that you might aspire to. But if you're only saying the core values that we put on the wall are aspirational and they're not exactly who we are, then I would say you also might have a little bit of a mismatch there. And I think that's something that we also are regularly having conversations with our leadership team, just to make sure that the things we put out there are authentic. And that, again, authenticity is not aspirational. It's okay to have aspirations, but it's also one of those things that I think you sometimes have to call it the way that it is, and then you have to ask yourself what you're doing from a process standpoint to get to those aspirations.
You mentioned something in there. I'm a big fan of looking at the positive end of the bell curve in terms of performance, rather than like what most of us do, at least early in private practice, is we just pound on the underperformers to get better. So you talked about High Five Fridays, and then you talked about like a team member of the month or something like that, where you have the bucket list.
Quarter, yes. And we just gave out 4 for end of Q1. So yeah,
can you walk us through, just to give us an idea, like pick one, like the one team member, you can name them or not, and then what was their bucket list item that they wanted to do, and just like the response to that. So if there's like a unique story,
best teammate, we've had everything from like front row seats at a sporting event to concert tickets to a snowboard to a guitar. Somebody wanted to gift their stepfather and mother a trip away, like a weekend away, and we got really, really nice hotel for them. So, you know, it kind of goes a bunch of different directions. We want it to be meaningful. Like if this is something that we think is important, like you showing up, embodying our values and being somebody that like everybody around you loves to work with you, that is something that we need to make sure holds a different kind of value or incentive than just finances, right? It's great. We like bonusing people. We like providing them with money. But if we can attach something that holds a different place in their heart with something that also that I would argue a lot of people just like getting recognized for in general. I mean, that pairing is something we feel like is special, and it's going to make people hopefully continue to show up their best self.
Love that idea. I might clone that one, Josh. Sorry.
Hey, I will give credit where credit is due. Rick Lau is where I stole that. So I don't know if anybody knows him. But he's I took that exactly from him. So great idea. Nothing taken if that becomes your thing too.
That's and I'll always let people swim upstream. Perfect. So we covered a lot here. I know before we hit record here and started the episode, you and I were talking about, you know, different partnership models. I know there's a lot in that right now. I would love to have you talk about that and share, to the extent that you're willing to, with how you think about partnership and also with the trends that are happening in private practice PT. And I'll give a little bit of context. I know when I went through PT school, the maximum that I was allowed to borrow was $24,000. And that is in totality for all 5 years of college education. The average DPT coming out today is $142,000 in debt per the APTA. I think that was 2024. So, and I mean, we've talked with students that are well over 250K. So they're, you know, getting back to that retention problem. How are you thinking about that? You know, the trend, I know you're really good at skating where the puck is going. How are you thinking about that? And then however you want to talk about your partnership model, to the extent you want to, that'd be great as well.
This is multi-layered, and we could probably go on a 30 to 60 minute podcast probably on this topic alone. But I think things that come to mind for me, you have professionals that do have a higher debt burden than ever. Now, some of them are going to fall in 3 different buckets. And this is not a perfect bucket, so to speak, but let's just categorize them, right? You have some people that are accepting. They might champion work-life balance. They might be okay. They might be set with their plan. They're comfortable working up within the time that they're at the office. They're going to work hard. They don't want additional responsibilities. They want to know how much work they can put in, how much compensation they can potentially receive. They want to know what that upside is. There's this next tier of people that want to, quote unquote, work their ass off, right? They want to do more. They're willing to take extra patients, take extra evals, et cetera, knowing that there's going to be this more clearly defined upside there. They might work their way into a site director role. They might work their way just into a more senior role. They might work their way into a mentorship role, teaching, training, whatever. Let's call that track B. And then there's a third group of people that I think we were really, really missing there. And this is where this entrepreneurship partnership model came to be, where they want to not only work their ass off, but they want to have some kind of proportionate upside, right? They want to have results with regards to some skin in the game financially that they can earn their way into, and they're okay with sweating their way into that space, which does require some outside of 4 walls energy. not just are you good at building a caseload, you're not just good at leading your peers within the four walls of the company, but you're somebody that can go out into the community, do certain things from a marketing and biz dev side, and you deserve some kind of reciprocity from the business as a result of doing this. Now, I'm not going to mention the people that are going to go and start their own thing. That's a separate category in itself. That's obviously not something we're trying to create. It has happened where we have had clinicians leave and kind of do their own things. And obviously that's a proven model that's out there. But for the people that don't want to reinvent the playbook, that's why we have this clinician CEO model. So, we qualify people. There's a 3-phase way of qualifying them at R2P. They end up having the ability to go and to tell us where they want to have a location. So this is where we say we choose people first, location second, and not vice versa. I've never signed a lease and then gone and looked for the people. We are internally moving people who are qualified in our ecosystem to typically go places where they live and or have lived for a very long period of time. We've actually paired a lot of our founders up in locations that they grew up in. And those situations have been home runs. But these individuals go in, they sweat, they do 3 things well with regards to building the caseload, leading a group of professionals at their office, doing some of these business development oriented tasks, and they have upside in the way of profit sharing. For a lot of those people, that's really, really meaningful money. And it's definite upside and puts them in a situation where, quite honestly, there's some of these like PE backed or bigger groups where these people are area directors of like 5 to 15 clinics. And these people are overseeing 1 office or 2 office and definitely clearing more than those individuals. So, we're big believers that it's up to us to kind of continue to refine the playbook. We want them to feel like this is a decision where they are almost having a level of certainty with regards to where they're going to get to. It's up to us to work with them and them to obviously play their part to determine when.
Love it. And really appreciate you sharing components of that vision as well. I know, like you said, this is really a 60-minute conversation. So just doing this for all the podcast watchers and listeners right now, Josh and I, so we're hosting a Titans Live event, which is September 24th through 26th in Nashville. Josh is a Titan. He's going to be in the book, and he's also going to be sharing and speaking at the event as well. So we'll put a link in the show notes for those of you that are private practice owners, want to hear the rest of this conversation with Josh doing it live. You can also ask him to sign your book as well. That'd be great. But Josh, for our listeners that want to learn more about you, more about Rehab to Perform R2P, and get into everything that what's the best way for them to follow you or connect with you?
Yeah, I would say the best place is probably to first, check out our website. Go to rehabtoperform.com, check out what the company has to offer. If you're looking to connect with me on a personal level, LinkedIn and Instagram is definitely where I'm more involved. You'll get more of a long form approach to some of the things going on at R2P on the LinkedIn space. Instagram will be a little bit more of what I call the Josh Funk ecosystem, mix of personal things, professional things, R2P things, health and wellness, etc. But if I do not respond to a comment, please do not take it personally. I need to be better there. If you DM me, I'm almost guaranteed to respond to you. So yes, this is a subtle request for you to slide into my DMs, but it'll definitely be a way for us to connect and potentially for you to learn a little bit more.
That's great. And one final question here before we wrap up. What's the most influential book that you've ever read in your private practice career?
It is such a good one. And it might just be because I had a conversation with a member of our staff recently, but I think the book Crucial Conversations I reference so regularly because of shortcomings that I had early in my career with regards to understanding that there is truly a spectrum of how people operate in situations where they are hearing information that they do not want to hear or did not intend to hear. And I think that there are ways for us to maximize our effectiveness. I think it goes beyond like how to win friends and influence people and gets more to the heart of what is probably the biggest problem area for a lot of business owners, which is just discourse, right? So if I can think of like paths to get through discourse and not have a winner, but have to have some kind of like agreed upon outcome, while also exiting in a way that neither person feels like they got slighted or that they were, potentially not heard, not listened to. That book, I think, is just critical. I grew up in a little bit more of a hierarchical household, I would say. My mom is a military brat, very direct conversational style, as few words as possible. Talk, do, move on. So few people do well like that, and I learned that very, very early in my business journey. And I think without that book, like we would be nowhere. I think my overall level of effectiveness as a leader would have been significantly, it would have significantly hamstrung the business. Fortunately, I've also just evolved from a little bit more of a, again, that hierarchical leader. And I would say I would communicate that I am more of a player's coach. And I think that more collaborative coaching, consulting way of leading also ties into a lot of principles of that book as well.
Yeah, but I'll second that. We've never had anybody mention that book before. Absolutely love it. Super smart. I think it's something that should be required reading for every practice owner who's a leader and is overseeing more than themselves. But great recommendation. Josh, this has been absolutely amazing. Very much appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to be on the podcast here. This is great. Thanks, man.
Appreciate you having me. Looking forward to Nashville.